The human medic's boots made soft crunching sounds as he walked across the dusty floor of the alien jungle outpost. Thick vines curled up the walls of the abandoned research base. Everything smelled like wet moss and something else that didn't belong. Private Darren Holt had been sent on a simple recovery mission. At least, that's what Command told him. The alien base had gone silent 3 days ago. No messages, no warnings, no sign of life. But as Darren stepped through the flickering security gate, he saw claw marks on the walls. Deep ones, blood too green, thick and sticky. He crouched, touched it with his gloved fingers, still fresh. Someone or something was still here. He flicked on his helmet light and moved forward, sweeping the corridor with his rifle. The flickering power lights gave just enough glow to make shadows move. Every creak made his breath tighten. A sound echoed from deep inside the base. It wasn't a machine or metal, it was breathing. Rapid, uneven, and too close. He raised his rifle, finger tight on the trigger. "Don't shoot." A soft voice cried out. He turned fast and found her there, an alien girl curled in the corner of a storage room. She was young, maybe his age, with pale lavender skin and long black hair, tangled over her face. Her uniform was torn, and her body shivered violently. Her hands were clawed and trembling, gripping her sides. He lowered his weapon slowly. "Are you injured?" Her glowing yellow eyes locked on him. "It's inside me?" "I think it laid something." "In me," she whispered, nearly choking on the words. Darren blinked. "What laid something in you?" "Crabs. Alien crabs," she gasped, scratching at her neck. "I tried to burn them off, but they burrowed. It's itching badly, human. You must inspect me." Her voice cracked as she slumped forward. Darren's heart pounded. This wasn't part of any mission briefing. He quickly scanned her with his portable medkit. The scanner blinked red multiple heat signatures just under her skin. Movement, fast and scattered. He cursed under his breath. Parasites, alive, multiplying. Her skin was turning, blotchy and raw. The itching must have been maddening. "I need to cut them out," he said, kneeling beside her. "No," she hissed, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. "You mustn't cut. They're too deep now. You'll only make them spread." She whimpered again and tore off part of her uniform, revealing her shoulder. The skin there was swollen, pulsating. "I didn't ask for this," she said, tears welling up. "I'm not a soldier. I was just a medic. I stayed behind to help my people escape. But I was left behind. I was hiding, and they found me." Darren knew the parasite type now. Alien field crabs, an invasive creature used as a biological weapon by rogue factions. Tiny, smart, impossible to fully destroy once they made a nest. He had seen them once during a training video. A whole battalion lost in 6 minutes when the crabs made contact. And now, they were inside her. "I can freeze the area," he said. "Slow them down, maybe kill a few." "Then do it," she whispered, "before I lose my mind." Darren reached into his medpack and pulled out a cryo-injector. As he pressed it to her shoulder, she winced, but didn't cry out. Frost spread over the infected skin. The scanner blinked again. A few of the signatures slowed. Some stopped. But many others were still active, moving deeper toward her spine. "I need to get you back to base." "Proper tools, containment units?" She shook her head. "You take me out there, they'll put me in quarantine, forever. I know how humans deal with alien biothreats." He didn't argue. She was right. The protocol was harsh. "Containment before compassion. Then we deal with it here," he said. "But I need your help." She looked up, the pain in her eyes fierce. "My name is Clara. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to become one of them." They had little time. He pulled out more tools, synthetic gloves, and a heat scanner. But as he looked at her shoulder again, something new had appeared. Tiny ridges under her skin were moving upward toward her neck, and then he heard something behind him. A skittering sound, not inside her, but outside. Darren turned quickly, aiming his rifle at the ceiling. From a vent, two small black crab-like creatures crawled out, clicking their claws. They weren't just inside her. They were all over the outpost, and they were watching. Asterisk. Darren fired at the first crab without thinking. The small alien burst into pieces, spraying green liquid across the floor. The second one dashed back into the vent, fast as lightning. Clara screamed, covering her ears. Darren rushed to her side. "They're watching us," she whispered. "They learn fast. The more you kill, the more they change." "How many are there?" Darren asked, checking his weapon. "I don't know. I heard them crawling in the walls, talking, clicking. They're small now, but they grow. If they reach the main hatch, they'll escape this base." Darren knew that couldn't happen. These weren't ordinary creatures. They were bioweapons engineered to infest and multiply. If even one reached a human colony, it could lead to disaster. He helped Clara to her feet. She leaned on him, her body weak but her will unbroken. "Where's your med lab?" he asked. She pointed down a side hallway, bottom level. "We kept research notes there. Anti-crab samples too? Maybe. But the power's been unstable. Elevators are out. Then we go by stairs." They moved quickly, every sound around them making their hearts jump. The base groaned and creaked. Sometimes it felt like the walls were breathing. Darren stayed alert, his rifle up, eyes scanning every vent, every shadow. Halfway down the stairs, they found a body. It was one of Clara's crewmates. Her eyes were open, frozen in fear. Her chest had been hollowed out from the inside. Clara covered her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. "She was my friend," she said softly. "We swore to escape together." Darren gently closed the woman's eyes. "Then we finish." "What she couldn't. We survive." They reached the lower level. The lights here were weaker, flickering like dying stars. Clara led him into the med lab. It was a mess. Tables flipped, glass cracked, and blood smeared across the consoles, but the data core was still intact. Darren began searching the drawers, swiping data pads and scanning containers. "We need something that kills the crabs but doesn't kill you." Clara held her shoulder as she moved to a screen. She tapped into the base logs. "My people experimented with a sonic pulse. It shook the crabs out of the body in test animals. But it wasn't perfected. Too much power and it tears the host apart, so we fine-tune it. I can help," she said. "But you'll need to hold me down if it works." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Suddenly, the lab. Lights went red. Emergency alarm. Movement detected. They turned to the door and saw them. Hundreds of tiny crab creatures pouring from the hallway vents. Their bodies clicked and shimmered as they scuttled forward. Some crawled along the ceiling. Others rode on the backs of larger ones, mutated, armored, sharp. Darren sealed the lab door just in time. The creatures smashed into the metal, scraping and screaming like a living swarm. Clara winced and dropped to her knees, scratching wildly at her neck and arms. "They're calling to me. I can feel them," she gasped. "They want me to join. Them become their queen." He pulled her close. "Fight it." "You're not one of them." She looked up at him, breathing hard. "Then save me, before they make me something I'll never come back from." Darren moved fast. He found the sonic emitter, connected it to the wall power, and set the frequency low. "Just enough to shake them out," he muttered. "Not enough to tear you apart." Clara lay down on the metal table. Her skin shimmered with sweat, eyes wide, trusting him. He activated the emitter. The hum began soft at first, then stronger. The air vibrated, Clara screamed. Beneath her skin, the ridges moved wildly. Darren held her arms down as the first crab burst from her shoulder, landing on the floor in a heap. Then another. And another. They were coming out, but the door behind him began to crack. The swarm was breaking through, and the sound was calling them, too. The sonic pulse grew louder, filling the small lab with a deep vibrating hum. It shook the walls. Clara's body trembled as more of the alien crabs tore their way out of her flesh. Each one hit the floor with a wet slap and started crawling toward the walls. Darren crushed 2 of them under his boot, then grabbed a nearby chemical sprayer and torched a third. Its tiny legs curled in as it sizzled, shrieking before it died. Clara screamed again, her back arching from the pain. "Make it stop, please." "I can't," Darren shouted, holding her down with one hand and firing at a vent with the other. "They're still in you. If I stop now, they'll crawl deeper." Another crab burst from her neck, leaving a trail of black fluid. It landed on the table, skittered toward Darren's face, but he caught it mid-air with a surgical clamp and crushed it against the wall. Behind them, the door began to dent outward. The swarm outside had grown larger, stronger. They had tools claws, like knives. One of the crabs outside started pressing a sharp limb into the lock, making sparks fly. "They're learning how to get in," Darren said through clenched teeth. "I can't take more of this," Clara sobbed. "They're not just crawling, they're whispering inside my head. They know my name. They say I belong to them." "No, you don't," he said firmly. "You belong to yourself. And I'm not letting them win." He turned up the sonic pulse. "Just a little more." Clara screamed again, but something changed. The movement under her skin slowed. Fewer ridges. The scanner showed only 2 life signs left inside her. Just 2. "You're almost free," Darren said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Hold on." The lab door cracked open. Just an inch, but enough for a crab to squeeze through. Then another. Then 5 more. They rushed inside like a wave, claws out, clicking wildly. Darren pulled Clara off the table and grabbed his rifle. He pushed her behind a metal cabinet. "Stay down." He fired, round after round, each shot echoing through the lab. Shells fell to the floor as smoke filled the air. Crabs exploded into green mist, but there were too many. One leapt onto his shoulder, biting into his armor. Another crawled onto his leg. He slammed his back against the wall, crushing the one on his shoulder. Then he dropped and rolled, smashing the second against a desk, but one of them leapt onto the sonic emitter and dug into the wires. The pulse died. Silence. The crabs paused. Then turned all of them toward Clara. They smelled the remaining 2 inside her. No, stay back," she cried. Darren pulled out his last grenade. Fatadena. Plasma burst. He tossed it toward the group. "Cover your eyes." The blast lit the lab in a flash of blue fire. The crabs burned instantly, their screeches turning to silence. When the smoke cleared, Darren crawled over to Clara. Her face was pale, her breath shallow. "They're gone," she whispered. "I can't feel them anymore." He scanned her body. The signs were gone. "No more parasites. You're clean," he said, smiling slightly. "You made it." She didn't smile back. "But the others, the swarm is still alive. I can feel them in the base. I'm not connected anymore, but I still hear something. Then we finish this," Darren said, standing. "We burn the nest." Clara nodded slowly. "It's in the old reactor chamber. That's where they kept their eggs. And something bigger, the queen." Darren stared at the broken lab door, then down at his half-empty rifle. "Then we'll need more firepower." He helped her up, and she grabbed a fresh stim shot from the cabinet. Her strength returned slowly, but her eyes were sharp again. "We go together," she said. He nodded. "Together." The base was quiet now, but Darren knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. The Queen wouldn't let them go without a fight, and neither would he. The hallway leading to the reactor chamber was dark and filled with smoke. Broken lights flickered, and strange sounds echoed from deep inside. The walls were wet and slimy, coated in some kind of glowing green jelly. It smelled like decay and acid. Darren and Clara moved slowly, weapons ready. He had replaced his rifle's battery and picked up a second plasma grenade from the emergency kit. Clara carried a long, sharp plasma lance she found in the armory. She walked beside him now, stronger, more focused. This place used to be clean, she whispered. Now it feels like a hive. They turned your base into a breeding ground, Darren said, looking around. And they're not finished. As they got closer to the reactor doors, they heard it. A low, pulsing hum. It wasn't power. It was alive, a sound that came from many throats or legs. A chant made by insects. They reached the heavy blast. Doors, now covered in crab shells and slime. Clara pointed at the lock. They melted through it. It opens from the inside now. Darren knelt and scanned the lock. Still has some power. I can override it. He tapped into the panel and rewired a few circuits. Sparks flew, and the doors groaned. Slowly opening. Behind them was the Queen's chamber. It was huge, 3 stories tall. The reactor core still glowed faintly, casting pale light over hundreds of egg sacs hanging from the ceiling. Slime dripped. From above, crabs of all sizes crawled along the walls and floor, guarding the eggs. In the middle of it all sat the Queen. She was massive, bloated, with a hard shell and long spiny legs. Her eyes glowed red, and her mouth never stopped moving, clicking, twitching, tasting the air. She knows we're here, Clara whispered, holding her weapon tight. The Queen turned her head slowly toward them. Then she spoke, not with a voice, but inside their minds. You broke the link. You stole my child. I will make you whole again. Clara shook her head. She's trying to control me, but I'm not hers anymore. The crabs started to move, dozens at first, then hundreds. They rushed toward Darren and Clara like a living wave. Now or never, Darren said. He tossed a plasma grenade into the crowd and fired his rifle. Clara ran forward with her lance, spinning and slicing the crabs as they came close. Her movements were fast, deadly. The cryo treatment had made her stronger somehow. The grenade exploded, throwing bodies and slime everywhere, but more kept coming. We can't kill them all, she yelled. We need to destroy the eggs. Darren spotted a fuel line near the reactor. If we overload the core and ignite the fuel, the whole chamber will burn, and us with it. Then we set it on a timer. He ran across the room, dodging crabs, and pulled a fuel cable loose. Blue fire dripped from the end. He yanked the control panel and set the reactor to overheat. You've got 5 minutes. He shouted. Clara covered him while he worked, slicing through any crab that got too close. Her arm bled, but she didn't stop. Then the Queen stood up. Her legs slammed into the floor, shaking the ground. She opened her mouth and roared, not just sound, but a mental blast that knocked Darren to his knees. Clara fell too, screaming as the Queen tried to take control again. You are mine, the voice said. Return to the nest. Be one with your family. No, Clara cried. I'm not yours. She picked up the lance and charged straight at the Queen. Darren shouted after her, but it was too late. Clara ran across the room, dodging claws, jumping over eggs, and leapt high, driving her plasma lance straight into the Queen's eye. The creature screamed. Her body convulsed. Crabs all around her froze in place. Clara dropped to her knees. Darren ran to her, grabbed her arm, and pulled her up. The core's overloading, he said. We've got to go. They ran toward the exit as alarms started to blare. Behind them, the Queen screamed again, this time weaker. Flames started to spread across the chamber. As the doors closed behind them, the reactor chamber burst into fire. The hive was burning, but Darren didn't know if they'd escaped everything yet, because something had crawled into his armor during the fight, and it was starting to itch. They stumbled into the upper corridor, coughing from the smoke. The entire base shook behind them. The reactor chamber was gone, burned to ash. Hundreds of eggs, maybe thousands, all destroyed. But Darren wasn't thinking about the fire. He was thinking about the itch. It had started as a small prick on the back of his neck. Now it felt like something was crawling slowly, deliberately under his skin. He didn't say anything at first. Clara was limping beside him, still bleeding from the fight. She had risked everything to kill the queen. She was tired, hurt, and silent. He told himself it was just nerves, just sweat, just the aftershock of battle. But the feeling spread down his neck, across his shoulder, toward his spine. He stopped walking. Clara turned around, breathing heavily. "What is it?" Darren didn't answer. His hand reached slowly up to his neck and pressed hard. Movement. Not his own. "Darren?" Her voice changed, worried, soft. He looked at her, his face pale. "I think one of them got in." Clara moved fast. She grabbed her scanner and ran it over his body. The screen blinked. A single red dot near the top of his spine. Alive. Moving. "It's inside," she whispered, "just like they were inside me." He leaned against the wall, shaking his head. No, we can't go through that again. I saw what it did to you, how you screamed." "I can't?" "We'll stop it before it goes deeper," she said, trying to stay calm. "It's alone. It doesn't have a hive anymore. No queen. Maybe it's weak, or maybe it's learning." He slid down to the floor, his head in his hands. "This is how it spreads, isn't it? One survivor. One tiny mistake." Clara knelt beside him. "Then we fix the mistake now." She pulled a small surgical blade from her belt. "It's near the surface. I can cut it out if you let me." He stared at her. "Will it hurt?" "Yes." He gave her a weak smile. "Then let's get it over with." Darren pulled off his armor and leaned forward. Clara carefully cut open the back of his neck. Blood spilled and Darren gritted his teeth. She used the clamp tool to pull back the tissue, and there it was, a small black crab, its body slick and pulsing, buried halfway into his muscle. Its tiny claws moved like it was digging deeper. Clara didn't hesitate. She shoved the clamp into the wound and yanked it out. Darren screamed. Blood hit the wall. She threw the crab to the floor and crushed it under her boot. It let out a final twitch and died. She dropped the tool and pressed gauze to his neck. Darren lay there, breathing fast, face pale. "It's done," she whispered. "You're safe." He laughed softly, but it sounded tired. "Next time, we wear tighter suits," she smiled. It was the first time he had seen her do that, but the peace didn't last. The hallway lights turned red again. A voice came through the base intercom. "Unknown infection detected in base. Quarantine protocol activated. All exits sealed. Gas release in T-4 minutes." Clara stood up fast. "They think we're still infected." Darren groaned and tried to stand. "We're not. I'm clean. You're clean. The system doesn't care," she said. "It sees movement, parasites, blood. It only knows one thing, or destroy." They heard metal doors slam shut down the hallway. The air vents began to hiss. They were about to be locked in. "We have to reach the command center," she said. "We override the protocol, or we die with this base." Darren wiped blood from his neck and grabbed his rifle. "Lead the way." They ran down the corridor, smoke in the air, lights flashing. Clara looked at him as they moved. "You saved me when no one else would." "Yeah," he said. "Now save me back." and together they ran toward the last place in the base that might still listen to them. Asterisk, the command center was only 3 corridors away, but every second counted. The gas hissed louder through the vents now. A soft mist was starting to form along the floor. It wasn't thick yet, but it would be. Darren coughed once, then again. Clara covered his mouth with a cloth from her pouch. "Breathe through this," she said. "It'll slow the gas effects, but not for long." He nodded and pressed on. They reached the command doors, locked. Red lights blinked. Above the panel, Clara placed her hand on the scanner, but it denied access. "System's not recognizing me," she said. Darren stared at the panel. Then, "We force it." He opened the panel and started crossing wires. Sparks flew. The screen glitched, then blinked green. The doors hissed open. Inside, the command center was still alive. Screens flickered with system warnings. Charts of the base showed gas slowly filling every room. A countdown flashed. 2:03 minutes remaining. Clara ran to the main console. "I can override the purge, but I need clearance code. My officer had it, but she died." Darren sat in front of another screen, typing. "There's got to be a backup in the system. Emergency shutdown codes are usually stored inside black box logs. Try command path Echo 7. He typed it. The file opened, and then he froze. Clara saw the look on his face. "What is it?" He turned to her slowly. "This wasn't just an accident." "What do you mean?" He pointed at the file. "The crabs were brought here on purpose. They weren't a surprise attack. They were released by your own people." Clara backed up. "No, that can't be right. My crew, they died fighting them." "Because the test got out of control," Darren said. "The logs say it was a secret weapon program. They wanted to test how the crabs would spread in a live environment." She stood silent, breathing hard, her eyes wide. "They used us?" "They used you. And when it failed, they locked down the base and walked away." She grabbed the edge of the console to steady herself. "That's why they never came back. Why they didn't answer my calls." Darren turned to the purge. "System, we have less than a minute." Clara didn't move. "Hey," Darren said, stepping closer. "I know this is hard, but if you don't override that gas, we both die. They win." She stared at the screen. Then something changed in her eyes. Anger. Cold and sharp. She typed fast, entering an old override code she remembered from training. "Access granted. Quarantine purge. Cancelled. The hissing stopped. The red lights faded. The doors clicked open. Silence filled the base. Then the main screen changed. A transmission request. From space. Commander Reeve requesting base status. "Is the test complete?" Clara's hand shook as she accepted the signal. The face of a high-ranking alien officer appeared on the screen. "Commander Clara," the voice said, cold and distant. "I see you survived. That was not part of the plan." She stared at him. "You lied to us. The program needed real conditions. We needed real subjects. You made me their queen," she whispered. "You let them crawl inside me. We gave you power, and we watched. You were magnificent." Clara raised her lance and drove it through the control camera. The screen shattered. Darren stood beside her. "Now what?" She looked at the broken screen. "They'll come here. To clean the mess. To make sure we're dead. Then we don't wait." Darren moved to the ship logs. "There's an old evac shuttle in Hangar 2. If we reach it, we can escape." "We're not escaping," Clara said. "We're bringing the truth back. We show everyone what they did, what they planned." Darren nodded slowly. "Okay, but we better move fast. They might already be on their way." Together, they left the command center and ran toward the hangar. Neither of them noticed the small camera Lights still blinking in the corner, quietly recording everything. Someone was still watching, and they weren't alone. The hangar doors were half open, dust and smoke swirling inside. Old lights flickered from the ceiling, showing the shape of a small evac shuttle parked near the center. It was scratched, dented, but still intact. Darren and Flora ran across the hangar, boots echoing on metal floors. Clara kept looking over her shoulder, her plasma lance still in hand. "They're coming," she said. "I can feel them, not the crabs. The ones who started this." Darren reached the shuttle door and pulled the release lever. It opened with a loud hiss. "We get off this base. We send the recordings to every human and alien system that will listen." Clara hesitated before stepping inside. "And then what?" "We make sure they can't hide it again." They climbed into the pilot seats. The shuttle was old, but the systems blinked to life. Darren linked the files from the command center to the main comm relay. He began sending everything: video, voice logs, parasite scans, Reeves' confession, and footage of the Queen. The transmission stretched across channels: civilian, military, science networks. Clara watched the progress bar tick upward. "They'll try to block it," she said. "Let them try," Darren replied. "Someone will hear." Then the shuttle's alert system beeped. "3 incoming ships," the computer said. "Unidentified. Armed." Clara stared at the radar screen. "They're early." Darren tightened the seat belt. "Too late to stop the message now. We just have to survive long enough for someone to see it." The enemy ships entered the hangar airspace, dark and silent. No warning shots, no orders. Just shadows moving fast. "They're going to destroy us," Clara said. "Not yet." Darren fired up the shuttle's engine. The floor rumbled. Heat spilled from the back thrusters. "Hang on." The shuttle burst forward, shooting through the half-open hangar bay. The larger ships fired, but the blast hit the base wall, not the shuttle. They cleared the station. Darren pulled the controls hard. Dodging a laser strike? Clara activated the countermeasures: smoke pods, scrap decoys. One enemy ship was thrown off course. The other 2 followed, but slower. "Sending the last packet now," Darren said. But then a missile struck the back engine. The ship rocked hard. Fire alarms blared. "We're hit," he shouted. The shuttle spun out of control. Clara's head slammed against the console. Sparks flew. Darren tried to steady the flight, but the controls burned his hands. "We're going down," he cried. Below them was a small moon, barren, gray, and cold. The shuttle broke through the thin atmosphere, crashing toward the surface. The last thing Darren heard was Clara calling his name. Then darkness. Light returned slowly. Darren blinked, tasting blood. His head throbbed. He was lying on cold rock. The shuttle cracked open behind him. He pushed himself up. "Everything hurt, Clara?" He called. No answer. He stumbled to the wreckage. She was inside, alive, but unconscious. He pulled her out and wrapped her in a heat blanket. Then he looked up. In the sky above, the enemy ships were gone. No more gunfire, no more signals. Just silence and stars. He checked the shuttle's distress beacon. Still working. Still blinking. More. Importantly, the transmission had sent fully, and the recorder light was still green. People would know. The truth was out there. He sat beside Clara, watching her chest rise and fall. She had risked everything to warn the galaxy. She had trusted a human when no one else did, and he had trusted her. Darren leaned his head back and smiled at the stars. "They'll come for us," he whispered. And for the first time, he knew someone would, because the whole galaxy had just seen what they did, and someone somewhere was going to fight back.